welcome to Dharma Outreach, Dharma Talks. This is our umpteenth episode. I don't even know what episode it is.
I've lost track.
You're at 14 or 15.
Yeah, it's like 15 or something. So we're back here for a new year. And, what an exciting year it was last year. I have the Venerable Sujatu Bhikkhu with me, as always. And I have Samantha, COO of the nonprofit that supports all this amazing work that we're doing. So welcome, Samantha.
Thank you for having me. What's the nonprofit?
Tiffany's Recovery Incorporated. A name drop. That's right. She's here to remind me that we got a name drop on everything. Sam. Samantha isn't a practicing Buddhist, but she lives with one and has to deal with one regularly. How is that?
It's great. Buddhism really interests me. I like a lot of the aspects of it. I think that the mindfulness is really great, and the meditation is something that I should practice because I'm not organized.
Okay.
I think it's interesting for me because I've spent where are we? I've got to think now. How many years? 10 years. Obviously, being in no kind of relationship really with anyone. So I find this quite interesting. So I'm going to kind of sit back and listen. But I do find it interesting. I find it interesting on other people's take on how it is to be a practicing Buddhist. Although, as we know, I'm not keen on the term Buddhist. I prefer Dharma practitioner. But anyway, I'm not going to be pedantic about that. What it's like to interact and live so closely with a practicing Buddhist, and not only a practicing Buddhist, but a practicing Buddhist in recovery. So I'm kind of I'm treating like this today like as if I'm watching the experimental mice in the cage.
It's a sideshow. Yeah, you get to see a lot of that. There's a lot of I don't know.
Well, what's it like? I think a deep dive would be good of, the different emotions and things I deal with and the restraints of being a person with, having substance use disorders for a large portion of my life, but a person that also struggles with some trauma and mental health and, having to work through that. And, we work together on a lot of things, and I could just imagine, a lot of times people want to profess like this front of you get into spirituality, like all different types, and Buddhism being one, and then all of a sudden, the person's whole persona, changes, and they develop like this aura of, purity of such. I'm not a firm believer in that. I think that on any spiritual path, there's always going to be a lot of work, and things will change. So I think, I guess the question is this, right, while I ramble on. What is your experience over time working on this project, learning about Buddhism, and then, working with both me and Sujatu?
So I will say that I think a benefit of you being a practicing Buddhist is that when we have issues or disagreements or, I don't know, when you aren't acting appropriately, you always then come back and acknowledge that and work on that, where a lot of other people are too stubborn to do that. So I think the realizing that we're human and accepting that, you're good at that.
I do enjoy acting inappropriately.
Yeah.
So that's something I should not do, and that's something I continue to work on, baby steps.
And in fact, acting inappropriately is how both of us got ourselves into so much trouble.
Yeah, I believe so.
I do like the the way that you talk about and explain your path to Buddhism and the fifth precept and the no use of intoxicants. I feel like that resonates with a lot of people, just because it does help you to live like when your mind is clear, you can live a better life. You can think more clearly, even if it's not Buddhist based. It's just, but having it being said by the Buddha, I think people are like, oh, okay, that's interesting.
I think that's an interesting one as well, because one of the things that attracted me to the whole practice was the fact that there wasn't this, you must do this, otherwise this is going to happen. You mustn't do that, otherwise this is going to happen. It was the fact of, well, it might be an idea if you tried this, because you might find that that things work out a bit better for you. And certainly that fifth precept has been very beneficial to me, and I know to you, Marshall, and I think to a lot of others. When you actually internalize it and look at the reason for it, because it's not just you must do this and you mustn't do that. So yeah, I think that's been a big help, certainly for me.
I think the Dalai Lama put it as like wise selfishness, in like the sense of, you know, kindness and loving others. But I think there's wise selfishness in loving yourself, you know, properly. You know, obviously substances and stuff are self-destructive, and like the wording in Buddhism is the reading. I came to Buddhism through reading. It was so powerful because it's suggestive. I endeavor. It describes a process. It's the effort of something, and it's something that, you know, you work towards, and it happens over time. People talk about miracles and things of this nature. I expect no miracles in my life. I just really work towards improving the quality and state of my life in general, but that a lot of that is grounded in my psychology, in my emotionality. I guess they're the same thing, but in a sense, and it's something that I do struggle with. And the wonderful thing about our guest is she's seen every side of that. And I guess, you know, coming to the Dharma practice, people come to it in different ways and different understandings and different directions. But ultimately, the effort is all directed towards the same understanding of liberation, freedom from this suffering that we experience on all these different levels. So let me ask you this question, Sam, being on the show. How do you feel as that being like a foundation for me and bringing it into your life? How do you feel your life has changed over these past couple of years of us spending so much time together?
Definitely changed for the better. There's been some, you know, tumultuous kind of times, or like, what is that term? Like when you're getting calluses?
Calluses?
I'm trying to think of the word to describe it. You've taught me a lot about myself, and what's that other, is that the second precept, that not to lie? He's brutally honest, and that's, it's been an experience, because initially I just didn't know how to take it. I was really offended by a lot of things, and then just through the process of like understanding that he's not telling me things that are true to make my life worse. He's explaining things that are true to make my life better. So if he notices something that I'm doing that's not what I'm supposed to be doing, he points it out. And it's not like in an angry or mean way. It's just brutal honesty.
Well, I think like for you, like that, definitely that's something that you don't really like, but you do the same thing to me as well.
You taught me that.
Unabashedly.
You taught me that.
But I guess like it is appreciated like on some level, and I think the beauty of it is the intention is good. You know, like I think in some cases people will criticize or, you know, can, you know, be cruel towards others and point things out or in a way that is, you know, intended to be hurtful or whatever. And I think like two people living closely together as long as we have. It can be difficult, and like but it's definitely there's had like so many benefits to my life. I'm so grateful to have you in my life.
Grateful for you too. I had a thought and then it escaped me. It was based on that, but it'll come to me maybe.
What do you think about what's going on with like these projects and this outreach and helping people and encouraging them and empowering them and teaching them these ancient tools and things of such?
I had it. I can answer that in 1 second. My thought was that when you have direct, truths or criticisms, you have solutions to them, which I also appreciate. And you don't offer advice when you don't have a solution. So I appreciate that. As far as the outreach goes, I think that it's amazing. I think that what the two of you are doing with this project is nobody else in the area is doing it, and it's a huge benefit to the local detoxes and the shelters and really anybody that you're sitting and talking with and listening to, giving books to and sharing what helped you both in your recovery.
Oh, yeah, thank you.
I think as well that that I know we're here on the Dharma Outreach, Dharma Talks, but the bigger picture with Tiffany's, I think it's fairly obvious how much how much you've put into it, Sam, as well. So I kind of wanted just to shout that out. Because there's a lot of, it's easy for me to be saying, right, well, who's gonna give me a ride here, and I go and speak for an hour, and who's gonna give me a ride here, and I go and speak for an hour. There's so much that goes on behind the scenes, so I kind of just wanted to acknowledge that and the appreciation for that, because there is so much more going on as well. So,
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, much appreciated. We wouldn't be able to do what we do without you. So
Yeah.
we're very grateful for everything you've done and continue to do. And it's like we're almost like a little family now.
Yeah.
Which is interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think that there is a lot. There's a lot going on. I mean, and we are working on finding focus in all of those areas, just to kind of not lessen what we're doing, but make what we're doing more effective. Because it's a lot of kind of, there's directions. It's not misdirection, but it does need to hone in on its focus. So.
And of course, folks that see me and Marshall and a guest either in person or on this Dharma Outreach recording, there's a lot of other folks involved as well. So I'd like to shout them out as well. There's a lot of other folks involved in the bigger,
give a shout out
in the bigger picture of Tiffany's. I'm on a Tiffany's roll at the minute, just because I think it's important to make people aware that there's more going on. So there's a lot of folks. I'm not going to try and name them because I'll forget someone. But there's a lot of folks that I feel very grateful for the fact that those folks, and of course yourself, Marshall, and yourself, Sam, without them, I wouldn't be able to reach the people that I'm actually reaching, and I'm just a very small part of the whole, and I think sometimes folks forget that these things don't happen overnight. It's been a lot of work, especially with both of you. And I swanned in from Michigan last year. So yeah, I think it's. I just wanted to make my gratitude, point out my gratitude for everyone.
Well, thank you. Yeah, there's so many stakeholders, staff members of this nonprofit, volunteers, people that have been helping, involved, all in the pursuit of helping others and giving them the resources they need to find sustainable recovery, health, happiness, and that's so important. And it's been so rewarding. I think more than anything is just being connected to the core of this little organization, and being able to spread that love around. One thing, like I'll say, coming out in last year into this year, and I think to set the stage is vulnerability. I think finding that space of vulnerability and opening up to that, and that's something I struggle with. I struggle with the vulnerability, is because I've just really been put in a situation since I was young where I've had to fight or survive. Like, it's been told to me, I remember, the communications. And my mother, it was her point to do right by me and do well, and you're a man and you have to work and you got to fight and you got to survive, and those guys aren't going to pick on. So like that fighter mentality always, it really dominates my mind. I take it into all aspects of my life, and it can be a benefit, but it can also be an enemy as well. So, sounds like Sujatu's phone is ringing.
You won't better hear it.
So anyhow.
I thought it was dance time.
So yeah, it is like that is so distracting right now.
You can't make it stop.
Yeah.
So do you,
All right, so it has stopped ringing. I apologize. Yeah, that was a phone. But yeah, vulnerability. Like being vulnerable in those moments. Like right now, I'm vulnerable. Big mistake. Phone makes noise. I'm frustrated, and it completely derails my thought process. But it's fine. Everything's fine today, and moving into this next year is opening up to the rest of the world, giving our stories, being vulnerable, and just kind of, continue to do the work that we're doing.
I like the music.
Hold on, I'm gonna.
Do you think that's okay? I mean, they edit this. It's a music break. It's a commercial. There we go.
That was my fault. I apologise.
At least it's a fun ringtone.
It kind of typifies how we go about things, to be honest with you.
Yeah, no, you just keep it really out.
Because ironically, when I'm like absolutely like paranoid about leaving my phone on when I go to speak at places, so I always turn it off and I always forget here. So, we'll just roll with it.
Yeah, it's in the past now, right? It's in the past. It's in the past.
Yeah, well, that's it. Yeah.
So on this topic of vulnerability, like let's kick that off, and
Yeah. We're all vulnerable to forgetting to mute our phones. So I don't know why you got so mad about it. It's a fun thing.
I think it's vulnerability is an interesting topic, isn't it? Because I think that there is a huge reluctance, I think, for most people to admit any kind of vulnerability. But I think once we actually do that, we actually become of more use to the whole, if you like,
Absolutely.
Especially when we come to the terms with having to admit our limitations. So me, I can't drive, I can barely walk either, right, and I'm laughing about it, but I get through that by admitting that, and then by the kindness of other people who will drive me here and there, and it's just, I think it makes the whole more genuine when we kind of admit to both our vulnerabilities and our limitations,
That's another thing that you're good at, and you train people in your work, and I hear you all the time say ask questions, because a lot of people, I know for a fact that it's hard for me to ask questions when I don't know something, and I'm getting better at that, because when you ask, you can find out answers that you don't know yourself. When you try to do things that you might only know a little bit about, you might end up, half-assed. you say that a lot, is ask questions, and I think that helps people. That helps people to be vulnerable in that, because you're giving them that that go ahead. Like, ask me anything. If you have questions, ask. So.
Yeah, you open the door for that. Like, asking questions is tough. And I remember back in my active use days, I really didn't ask many questions because I was really afraid of two things. I was either afraid of looking stupid, or I was afraid of getting an answer that I didn't want. So it was always easier for me just to make up the rules and make it all up as I went along, which we all know how that worked out for me. So yeah, like that, like the training and the learning and, like, you know, the natural inquisitiveness, and then implementing that into relationships with other people, and understanding that it never hurts to ask a question, has been really beneficial for me in my own life. It's important in the work that I do, and then I try to, like, let that flow over into my other relationships in life, and I'm glad that that's something that has been helpful, because we've made a lot of mistakes. It hasn't been easy, and we have a whole new year to make more mistakes. So.
Make more mistakes and corrections, yeah. And that's been hugely beneficial in, you know, even communication with my children. You know, I never thought that I wasn't communicating well with them until one of those hard truths that you pointed out to me was. But it is really effective, and I think that's part of your practice that I really do appreciate also, is showing me, like, leading by example, like how to handle a situation when it comes to, you know, making a structured life for your children that's not, you know, overbearing, but getting the information that you need to properly parent them to be good people.
Oh, well, you're one of the best mothers. I think that's one of the things that I liked about you when we first started spending time together, is you're such a great mother with your children, and you're so caring and compassionate, and you're smart and inquisitive. All those really good qualities that you can take, and you can use that to help other people, which you've done. And I don't think it was ever your plan, really. So.
I just wanted to help you make flyers.
Yeah, that's what you did. You made flyers, and now here you are.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting you talk about, you know, new year, chance to make some new mistakes. I think that's another big thing that's important for folks to realise, that let's take this Buddhist path. So lay practitioners trying their best to keep 5 precepts, and, you know, I think the important thing with that one is that if tomorrow you can only keep 4, you don't actually beat yourself up about it, and you try again. If you can only keep 3, you try again, which comes across very much with recovery as well, you know, in exactly the same way. If someone has a relapse, then they try and get back on their feet and they start again. But the time before that is just as valid. And I think that comes across, it crosses over nicely with, with someone's Buddhist practice when they're trying with 5, and, you know, and then of course some folks, they'll want to try for 8, and, you know, you have to be realistic. You have to be realistic.
Oh, realistic with the precepts.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that it
In exactly the same way that I think folks need to be realistic with their goals and aims in their recovery as well.
That would be like the middle path, you know, like you
For
don't
sure.
want to, you know, you don't want to push yourself so hard where it's like you're, you're putting up a false front and trying to be something that you don't have prepared to be at this point. You know, or you don't want to put in such a lackadaisical effort where you're not doing anything. And that's where I struggle. I'm probably more on, like, not the over effort, but on the lackadaisical side. And you know what that got me thinking of as a fun fact, which you and I talked about, was Jack Kerouac's interpretation of the four precepts.
Four precepts.
Four precepts of taking out the no use of intoxicants, because it was hard for him to rationalize that, so he just ignored it.
I did find that quite ironic that he actually writes about 4 and not 5, and of course the one he doesn't write about is the no use of intoxicants. So yeah, you know, he was doing the best he could.
Did the best he could.
He was doing the best he could, and you know, folks that are doing the best they can, and I think most of us do most of the time. That's always got to be enough. It's always got to be enough. You don't, you know, there's no point trying to beat someone over the head, using it to beat someone over the head with like a stick. It's got to be enough, and you try again the next day, and you try again the next day. For me, it's the intention, and hopefully that intention gets a good result. But if one day the intention doesn't get that result you wanted, then you certainly don't let anyone else beat you over, use it as a stick to beat you over the head with, and hopefully you don't use it as a stick to beat yourself with, because that doesn't achieve anything, for sure.
Yep.
For
No,
sure.
No unsolicited beatings. That's the message I'm getting.
Yeah, I mean, that was a question that was brought up to us actually earlier today, was what is an indicator of success for people in recovery, or, you know, that they're heading in the right direction, and your answer was the amount of times that they've tried. And, you know, it's definitely fitting. Definitely, I think it's, people trying is way better than just accepting that, you know, this is what it is and this is how I'm going to be forever, because I feel like a lot of people end up that way, just complacent and not trying.
Well, I use, like, when I work with people, sometimes I use the Tom Brady analogy, because I'm a Patriots guy. And then the visual is like, when Tom Brady gets knocked down in a football game, does he stay down? No, he gets up and he throws that football again. And he'll never stop getting up and throwing that football, and, you know, until he can't get up. So the idea, I think, with, like, you know, a person's self-development, health, recovery, a lot of it is just, you know, through the pain and the suffering and the hardship, and then, like, the rejection and the failure, whatever it may be that stands in your way, is you just don't let it take you down. You just keep getting up, no matter how hard it is. And that's been the story for my recovery. I know other people, you know, have been through similar ordeal, and I think that's the beauty of what we do, is if we just keep getting up every day, other people will notice that, and then they're going to be encouraged to continue getting up. And you know, the more people that, you know, get up, stay up, you know, is the happier the world's going to be, the better of a world community we have, and that's the idea, I guess, is making the world a better place.
Yeah, for sure. Well, so I don't know if you guys can see the clock. I've got the huge clock in front of me, and we've got like just under 2 minutes to go.
2 minutes, yeah.
So I would usually throw it over to our guest, but I don't know if our guest wants to. I don't want to put our guest on the spot.
Thank you. No, this was nice. It was. I've never been. I'm always, you know, I always watch and I ask how they go, and so it's definitely been an experience. I know I didn't add a bunch, but I tried.
Oh, you're a good guest.
So, yeah, I really appreciate it. Thank you, Sam. Sometimes it's not easy coming and sitting here. When we first started doing these, I don't worry now. I even forget to turn my phone off. So I'm just going to shamelessly plug Tiffany's recovery as a whole for the last minute, if you guys don't mind.
Yeah, please, yeah.
Again, I know we usually talk about Dharma Outreach as if it stands on its own, but it certainly doesn't. It's just a small part of Tiffany's recovery. And so I'd like to just kind of put it out there. If anyone is interested in doing any virtual commitments, for sure, we're just in the process of trying to sort out virtual commitments. So not talking about having to physically be in a particular area. We're looking for people that are prepared to do, basically to speak about their own recovery path, and do that virtually. So if there's anyone listening to this that's interested, get in contact with us. Our info's out there. It's fairly easy to get in contact with us. You know, if there's any billionaires out there who want to throw us, would like to just throw us the odd few million to fund, to give us some funding, maybe to get us some property, I would say that no one in this organisation takes a cent out of it. Everyone does this for, you know, everyone does this really out of an act of generosity. So, you know, if you're out there, we're happy to accept anything that comes our way.
Tiffany'sRecoveryInc.com is the website.
Oh.
And with that, I guess we should wrap up. Thank you so much, Sam. Thank you, Marshall.